In the days before the murders, someone was already there, not in the open, not standing in the yard, not knocking at the door, just there, watching an isolated farmhouse from the tree line, leaving footprints in the snow that led toward the house, but never back out, moving somewhere above the family's heads at night, listening while they ate, waiting while they slept. And when the bodies were finally found at Hinterkaifeck, one detail made the whole thing worse. Whoever had done it may not have left. They may have stayed on the farm for days, walking between the dead, feeding the animals, eating the food, and living inside that silent house as if nothing had happened. This was not just a murder case. It was a nightmare that seemed to begin before the killing even started. And more than 100 years later, Hinterkaifeck still feels less like a solved crime, and more like a place where something terrible settled in and refused to go. Hinterkaifeck was a small farm in Bavaria, Germany, isolated enough that the quiet itself must have felt heavy. No crowded road outside, no nearby neighbors close enough to hear every sound, just open land, cold air, dark fields, and a farmhouse standing by itself with the woods not too far away. The family living there were Andreas Gruber, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, and the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner. From the outside, it was just another remote farm, but in the days leading up to the murders, the place began to feel wrong. Andreas reportedly found footprints in the snow leading from the forest toward the farmhouse. That alone would have been unsettling enough on an isolated property. But what made it far worse was that he could not find any tracks leading back out. Someone or something had come in from the woods, and as far as anyone could tell, it had never left. Then there were the sounds. The family reportedly heard noises coming from the attic. Not one strange sound, not some obvious explanation like wood settling in the cold. Noises, repeated enough to disturb them, human enough to feel wrong. At some point, a house key also went missing. And there were other little details, the kind that sound harmless until they are stacked together in the dark. A newspaper appeared on the property that nobody in the family seemed to recognize. The previous maid had reportedly left not long before, believing the house was haunted. Maybe that last detail sounds dramatic now. Maybe it sounded dramatic then. But imagine it for a second. A remote farmhouse, footprints from the woods, no return tracks, sounds overhead at night, a missing key, a servant so frightened she leaves. Even before anyone died, Hinterkaifeck already felt like a place being watched. Then came the murders. In late March of 1922, the family was killed. The details are still brutal even now. One by one, members of the household were lured or drawn into the barn, where they were attacked and murdered. And whoever did it did not stop there. The killer then went into the house and murdered the younger child and the maid as well. 6 people, 1 farm, no mercy. The violence was intimate, close, and deliberate. This was not chaos. This was not panic. This was not a stranger stumbling into sudden madness. Whoever did it moved through that property with control. And when people finally realized something was wrong, it was not because the killer had confessed, fled, or left a clear trail behind. It was because life around the farm began to feel strangely interrupted. The family failed to appear where they were expected. The little girl did not come to school. Mail and normal routines broke down. Eventually, neighbors and others went to check the farm. What they found turned Hinterkaifeck from a murder case into something much colder, because the evidence suggested the killer may have remained on the property after the murders. The animals had been fed. Someone had cared for them. Food had apparently been eaten in the house. The kitchen showed signs of use. Smoke may even have come from the chimney. Think about what that means. After killing 6 people, someone may have stayed there, not for minutes, not just long enough to hide something, possibly for days, walking through the same rooms, opening the same doors, hearing the same wind against the house at night, living beside the dead. That is the detail that makes Hinterkaifeck feel different from so many other old crimes. The murders are horrifying, but the silence afterward is even worse. Because it suggests calm, a person who was not in a rush, a person who knew the property, a person who felt safe there, even after what they had done. Over the years, many theories were raised. Some believed the killer was someone known to the family, someone with a personal grudge, someone familiar enough with the farm to move through it without fear. Others focused on the strange circumstances before the murders and the unnerving details afterward, the feeling that whoever was responsible had been near the house before the attack ever began. Suspects were named. Theories rose and fell, but no answer ever settled the case completely. No one was conclusively convicted for what happened at Hinterkaifeck, and that leaves the story exactly where the best dark mysteries always survive, in the gap between what happened and what people can bear to imagine. Because maybe the worst part of Hinterkaifeck is not the violence. Maybe it is the picture left behind, a lonely farmhouse in the cold, a family inside trying to live normally, a sound overhead in the dark, footprints arriving from the woods, no footprints leaving, and somewhere in that silence, the growing realization that the danger was no longer outside the house. It was already there,